the position they hold. Our bosses, our children, our teachers, police. And I don't know, I seem to have a fear of police. Or police, or preacher, or parents, or spouse. Yeah? What about persons who have influence over us by virtue of that influence that we allow them to have? Our friends, our colleagues, our enemies even. That sometimes we allow our enemies to have influence over us and we're watching what they think that we think. And the pop stars, the influencers, the social media people out there. So we know who has power over us. And I'm sure there are other categories you could add to that. But what do we mean when we say the arbitrariness of the powerful? The arbitrariness of the powerful. Arbitrariness is the quality of being based on a random choice or personal whim rather than any reason or system. A lack of restraint in the use of authority. A lack of restraint in the use of authority. Now, a lot of people face the arbitrariness of the powerful on a daily basis. One of the things that, there's a saying that poverty is a crime, and particularly so in Jamaica. One of the things that poor people face is the fact that anybody can do almost anything to them. Yeah, the police can get away with almost anything. I distinctly remember once we were studying with some guys in a particular community, a poorer community. And I made an illustration about the police, and I used it in a positive way. And the guy refused to accept it. He said, no, he don't have nothing to do with police. He's a very smart guy. He was going to JC at the time. Right? He don't want to hear nothing about police. Police for him is Babylon. I said, how do you feel so? Why he feels this way? And he said, he gave the example that, just the other day, he was walking down the street with him girl. And the police drives up and starts giving words to the girl. He's walking with his girlfriend, and the police just come and start dropping words on the girl. Now, that in and of itself is just abject disrespect, right? He then stops now and says something to the police. Police jump out of the car, bang up against the car, spread them out, them thing there. And while one is doing that, the other one is talking to the girl. So can you imagine how emasculating that is for a young man? And he could do nothing about it. When it's done, walk on, police drive on, no consequences. And that is just one example of lifetime of persons. Eh? That is the arbitrariness of the powerful. But it's not just in that. Some of us face it in our own lives. Yeah? Our bosses say, we must do X today, and then tomorrow them change their mind and must do Y. And it don't matter the fact that you already prepare for X. Their mind and feel say you must do Y, so you just have to do Y. What you going to do? What you going to do? So the idea here is that those who have power or influence over us don't always act in a reasonable or fair or consistent manner. And they certainly don't always act in our best interest. And when that occurs, the question is, as Christians, how do we maintain joy? How do we maintain peace in our lives? Sister Tammy.
I just looking at the previous slide and what you said last, in terms of the people that hold influence over us. And I'm thinking, if I was to look at the two, like I said, say your boss, and then I would say, if you look at your preacher, and I'm wondering how to balance the two. So I'm going, for example, we know you may have like a fair weather boss. A fair weather boss is a boss that is really good for good times. When things are good, the reactions are a little bit different. Expectations are, shifted. You don't have as much rigidity in terms of what is required, etc. But when things start to go south, then there's a whole lot of questioning and whys and so on. And there's a potential emotional roller coaster that can come with that, as you mentioned, arbitrariness. So I've found, and I've been in that situation more times than I would I would like. Sorry, I've been in that situation more times than I would like. I would say that my whole thing is just for peace of mind is to try not to get the comments to land. What do I mean by that? Is that even the comments of praise, I don't make it land. The comments of, I don't know, pettiness, try not to make it land. Meaning that if I know, when I said land, as in sink in, resonate, internalize it. Meaning that if I know that there's a standard protocol or a standard level of performance and so on, that is what I want to hold on to. The comments and so on, I don't need that for my going forward. And I find that that has helped me with my sanity. Having said that, no, when you carry that to your preacher, how do you, I don't know, and I've been in that situation as well. What happens when, it is not, when we're looking at maybe, I don't want to say gray areas, but there's a lot of opinion that is being shared and maybe not opinions that you agree to. And sometimes the opinions are shifting and that opinions carry you on an emotional roller coaster as well. Can I take that same approach of sitting here and saying, well, for my sanity and my peace of mind, I'm not going to let it land because there's a standard protocol, the Bible, that I'm going to hold on to, and I'm going to not allow myself to continue on this emotional roller coaster that steals my joy. I don't know if that's an approach, but I'm just looking at the two situations that you could be faced with persons who do have a position of influence over you, people that do have that kind of access to your joy, to add to your joy or take from your joy, and just wonder how you navigate through that.
Boy, damn it. You know, that's a real heavy question, right? Brother Smith, all right, let me start this way. I think what you have outlined in terms of your way of dealing with situations at work, I think it's a very useful situation. Sometimes we allow persons, so there are persons who are powerful, but sometimes we give them even more power than they ought to have. And as I like how you say it, sometimes we give them access to our joy when they should not have. They can have access to my paycheck. Yeah, they're gonna have access to my day's leave. They can have access to all those things, but they're not supposed to have access to my joy. And so sometimes when we hear the comments and stuff, we just have to say, no, thank you. That is coming from your place. That's not going to affect me. So I want to take that lesson from you to emphasize, and I think something that we should all try and learn for ourselves. Sometimes we give persons too much influence over us. We allow their words to have too much power in our lives. I thought I sort of hoping I stopped there, because that was a positive lesson to take from it. Now, the difficulty now is, how does that apply within the church? Can we apply that same approach to our preachers, or say if we had elders, our elders or our deacons? I would say, Tammy, and this is my opinion, I'm going to say this very, very clear, this is my opinion. I would say, yes, but we have to be exceedingly careful when so doing. Let me tell you why the exceedingly careful part. Because sometimes we have protective mechanisms where the things that we need to hear, we try not to hear them. And so we have to be careful that the reaction to say, this is not helping me, it's not helping my sanity, maybe a reaction to say, I don't want to hear this genuine criticism of what I am doing or how I go about doing things. And so I I use that as my defense mechanism now. And so we have to be exceedingly careful because then we will never be able to be corrected. And so if we're going to the cliff, we're going to fall over the cliff because anything that goes against my worldview, anything that goes against my current understanding of scripture will never be received because it doesn't land. And we have to be careful that as Christians, we always should be in a position where good spiritual truth does land. So that is the exceedingly careful part. But the yes part is also applicable, I think, because not, boy, I'm gonna get myself in trouble today. Not everything that we receive in church, let me say it that way. Not everything that we receive in church is always healthy and wholesome for our souls. And we have to learn how to filter that out. But this is why the answer is so difficult, Tammy, because we have to be careful because I know I have a tendency to want to filter out too much because it's going against what I want to hear. So I want to acquire some wealth. Hypothetical example. I want to acquire some wealth. A sermon is preached today that tells about be careful that your desires may not be properly aligned with God's will. And my filter immediately kicks in to say, well, no, I am good. Yeah, this is not for me, this is not. And so I filter it out. Am I filtering it out because it's not good for my sanity? Or am I filtering it out because it's not good for what I want? And that is why we have to be exceedingly careful. So if we go err on the side of caution in terms of spirituality, and I think we should err on the side of caution in terms of spirituality and church things, and let in more and filter more, have more discussions with people, understand where people are coming from in terms of the sermons that they're preaching and stuff like that, and have more dialogue and discourse, try to understand where persons are coming from. Because the worst thing to happen is we're traveling this road and we're going the wrong route and we're filtering out messages that we ought to be hearing because we're trying to maintain our sanity. Am I making sense? Rod, you can tell me the mic.
No, you're definitely making sense, David. That's why I asked the question. I know there's no easy answer, but I just also know, especially for some, you're making a lot of sense. Even that.
All right, so Hope, did I say hand go up earlier? No? All right, so Debbie.
My little 2 cents is that maybe in the church as well as outside, sometimes you may not be in agreement with the minister or with the elders, as well as you're not in agreement with your boss. But once you have the same objectives, the same goals, you're not working at cross purposes, I think your seniors, they will appreciate your input. I'm very opinionated, and I have sometimes at work, I will say I have a fight with my boss almost every week. And the two of us, I know we are basically working for the same objectives. Sometimes I will give in, and sometimes my boss will say to me, Debbie, I like when you push, because sometimes when you push, I get to the point and I realize your perspective. Sometimes your boss may not want you to be somebody who just simply does as you're told, because they want you to be able to make a contribution. And I think it's the same thing in church, because the minister is there and persons are there teaching us, but they want us to appreciate what they are telling us and for us to see the scriptures for ourselves. So I do not think there is any great harm in basically standing up once you do it respectfully, and once you do it respectfully.
I agree with you 99.99%. there's 0.01% of disagreement.
Depends on the other person's perspective and how they take.
Right. I would change, I just include the word should. That's how it should be. Is it always that way? No. So I have a group of friends from Mona who I mention all the time. Yeah, but I'm gonna know who I'm talking about. And we have been friends for ages. And you'd be surprised how many things on even matters of doctrine that we disagree on. Yeah? Some of them are very black and white, straight laced. They can't, very. Others like myself tend to be a little bit more liberal. But we remain friends and we remain able to have discussions because of exactly what you said. I really do believe every single one of them is really trying their best to understand the Bible and live right. I really believe that with all my heart and my soul. And so wherever they're coming from, or whatever they say, I believe this is where they're coming from. I can disagree with you fundamentally, but I know that's where you're coming from. If you have that assumption, you can work through anything. You can work through anything, you can go and talk. You can go and talk. So the point I'm taking from you is, and it's a good addition to my answer, Tammy. Let us make that assumption and believe that assumption until we're proven wrong. Until we're proven wrong. Give a person a chance to explain themselves. If we're proven wrong now, that's a different question to ask Brother Grinnell or Brother Smith. Because I can't answer it after that. Because if you're proven wrong and you can't make that fundamental assumption that we're all aiming for the same thing, we're all aiming for the same purposes. And we talk about in the church, yeah, it becomes real difficult at that point in time. Ron, you look like you want to help me because I'm squirming right now. No. Just so, Ron, you make an attempt. Brother Smith, we'll have to wrap up. Anything you want to add to this? Please. Brother Smith?
Brother Smith is squirming.
Engel.
No, I think the last statement is you've hit the nail on the head for me. I think we just understand where others are coming from and agree to disagree and don't internalize it. Yeah. So that's where I would say. So just listen, hear what they're saying. You disagree. You might even believe that it's, hypocritical or whatever it is that you want to add to the thing. But get back to a place where we are saying, okay, I understand what's coming from you. I'm not buying it and I'm not internalizing it. But I'm still not going to shut you down. You can, you have a freedom to say what you want to say. That's I think is the answer. The key though is that you have the key to your joy. You have the key to whether you internalize something or not. And it comes right back to you. It doesn't matter what's happening on the other side. You can determine, am I going to make this upset me? Am I going to make this be a matter of that steals my joy? No, I can decide that I'm going to say no, thank you. So that's where I would go with it. And move on. So here it is. This comes up. It could potentially disturb somebody. I hear it. I reject it, and I'm moving on because I am protecting my joy. So back to the point now as to whether that then makes me inured to correction. Again, you have that key as to whether this is valuable, and you have addressed all of that already. So I don't need to recite that.
All right, thanks, Brother Smith. I think it's a good place for us to stop today. We have the key. We have to be careful how we use that key. We have to be careful what we let in, but we have to also be careful that we do let in what needs to be let in terms of critiques and criticisms as well. Where the balance lies is something that we all pray and hope that the Spirit will guide us and lead us in that direction. All right, next Sunday's class, we will continue with this in terms of the arbitrariness of the powerful. Believe it or not, that's not really where I was going with the arbitrariness of the powerful, but when you raised it, I was very happy that you did because it's something that we should have been discussed. In Tuesday's class, we will continue to talk about the idea of humility in dealing with the arbitrariness of the powerful, and also knowing, going right back to the balance, when to balance between humility and yielding, as opposed to when to know when to stand up for our rights. And that's a critical balance as well, because we saw the examples of both in this passage. We saw Paul and Silas yielding, and then Paul and Silas standing up. How do we know when to do what? Important lesson for us to learn, important lesson for us to be able to teach our children as well. All right, thank you very much for your time, brethren. Hopefully I'll see everybody again on Tuesday when we will continue this lesson. Ron, remind man, who are the birthdays today? Oh, Nolan was the only birthday. He isn't here and we had no anniversary. So we're going to sing today. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great week, and please let us see you here on Zoom on Tuesday. We'll continue this lesson. Thank you for your time. Have a great